Kansas City, Our Town, Cowtown, Jazztown. We all know that the musical history we have here is deep. We know names like Count Basie, Mary Lou Williams, Charlie Parker, Pat Metheny, Bobby Watson. But how did we get from our humble beginnings, from a river town on a bluff, to where we are today? The Kansas City Jazz Orchestra, aside from being an internationally acclaimed performing arts group, representing just a part of our fantastic jazz scene today, are dedicated to education of our community, of our students, of you. With this series delving into the legacy of the music, we invite you to join us in discovering our roots. From 1821, music was present. In the French bottoms, French trappers had music at social gatherings. Most notably, the Rivard brothers ran a ferry crossing the river and played their fiddles for anyone who would listen. As the town grew, arts and entertainment establishments popped up. In 1870, the Coates Opera House at 10th and Broadway hosted itinerant opera troupes. And by 1920, Kansas City had 9 theaters and was a player in the print music scene. Jazz was a new music in the beginning of the 20th century. The rhythm and syncopation of ragtime met with the instrumentation of brass and concert bands, and the improvisation, humanity, and vocalizations of the blues, a music that was born out of slavery and the idea that positivity could overcome tragedy. Created by Black American musicians in New Orleans, it would spread north. Here in Kansas City, we had a collection of great representatives of these 3 progenitors of the music. James Scott, Uday Bowman, and John William Blind Boone all mastered the genre, and their compositions, Don't Jazz Me, 12th Street Rag, and Strains from Flat Branch, respectively, are just a handful of popular tunes of the genre. So ragtime. Ragtime was one of the most popular music that emerged out of the 19th century. It was a little bit different than what we had heard before, where everything was pretty downbeat oriented. So if you take a look at one of the most popular songs of the 19th century, Home Sweet Home, it sounded a little bit like this. Now, as you could hear, that's very downbeat oriented. Do-do-dee, dum-dum-dum, dum-dum-dum, da-dee-da-dee. Everything's on the downbeat. Now, when ragtime came out, that really changed things so that the melody was syncopated, or some of the accents were on the offbeats and not the downbeats. Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. So with that, you can see the syncopation. If these are the downbeats, boo-dee-doo-da, doo-dee-doo-da, 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 da-da-dee-da, doo-dee-da, beep, 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 boo-dee-doo-dee, doo-dee-doo-dee, doo-dee-dee-dee. Some of them are on the downbeats, some of them are on the offbeats, but that was a big difference from the downbeat-oriented music that came before it. The blues, the great writer Albert Murray said, is not the creation of a crushed spirit people. It is the product of a forward-thinking, upward-striving people. Blues music was a vaccine for having the blues, and the core of it is humanity. The cry and the voice was mimicked in instruments. The call and response nature is representative of dialogue between 2 or many people. You can talk, you must listen. In Kansas City, this interpretation of the human experience was shouted from behind the bar at the Sunset Club by Big Joe Turner, and sung by legends like Ma Rainey and Mamie Smith. Now the blues is a little bit different altogether. It's more of a vocal music. It's not an instrumental music first. So the way that the notes are presented, the way the melody is, it's a lot more human than an instrument might sound. Whereas when you play an instrument, the notes typically are subdivided into the chromatic scale. The human voice does not have that. We could train ourselves to sing a chromatic scale, and I can't do that. But the human voice can, there's little cracks and stuff in the music, or in the notes, in the human voice. So when people would try to play blues on an instrument, you would hear the vocalizations and the notes in between the notes. And growls and different things. So when you could combine those together, the blues, ragtime, with instruments of the brass band or the marching band or the concert band, when those things combined, that kind of created jazz music. As you're just starting to see, our roots run deep. Next time, we'll discuss the start of our long-running jazz tradition. Folks like George Lee, Mary Lou Williams, Benny Moten, and more took what emerged from New Orleans and gave it a distinctly Kansas City voice, something that's alive and thriving today. See you then.